two, three.
Let's go. I love to see the temple. I'm going there someday to feel the Holy Spirit, to listen and to pray for the temple.
It is time for another episode of the Cultural Hall. It is a Temple Ticker episode, which means Corey K. Ward, the Pharaoh himself, son of the number 1.5 fan of the Cultural Hall, number 1 fan of the Temple Ticker, joins us to talk all about the temple. Your mom is not the absolute fan of the show, but when you're on it, she is the number 1 fan. So the Pharaoh, he comes, he loves everything about temples, where they're built, where they're going to be built, speculation. That's us. We do that. First to tell you that there will be no more Moroni's. That was here, kind of. That was basically Corey and I sort of said, yeah, I'll beat that drum. The 500 temples by 2030. That's Corey. No one else is talking about that. So get in the inside loop, the inside track, the insider information. He scours Reddit and subreddits and talks about things in the back part of the Cultural Hall by the janitor's closet where all the good gossip is, and then brings it to us as a Temple Ticker. Where do you want to start tonight, sir?
Yeah, let's start. There's another dedication announced. This was one of those temples that was announced for the young kids that are listening. There used to be a prophet named President Monson, and he announced a temple in Nairobi, Kenya. That was his last conference. And yeah, this temple is going to be dedicated. They'll have an open house April 17th to May 3rd, with a media day on the 14th. We're going to get to see the pictures of it. And then Ulysses Suarez will be there on May 18th to dedicate it.
And that's number what for 2025?
It would be number 2 for 2025.
Okay. Yeah,
then,
it seems
I
like
guess number 204.
Yeah, first quarter, we're like, well, we had a busy year. And then we cram it all in the second, third, and fourth quarters.
That's what tends to happen is that there is, because we know that the general authorities have this December vacation and this July vacation. So you tend to get like a lot of open houses in January and then in the fall after the summer vacation. And so then you get the dedications in the spring and the fall.
Which is so funny because I know that it's like this and it doesn't destroy testimony for me at all. But I think growing up, I was like, when the Lord wants it open, that's when we'll do the open house. I think I sort of thought that way about it. I wasn't thinking like, yeah, it's Apostles' vacation that steers some of it.
I just think back then there was only 1 or 2 temples at most that were being dedicated every year. So maybe they didn't have a schedule like that back then. I'm sure there's some that are in July if you look back. But
sure.
Yeah, now that there's many per year, that you can kind of see this pattern.
Yeah. We're going to have to make sure that we do that moving forward.
Yeah, something interesting about this temple in Kenya. It's the first one in East Africa. While this temple was under construction, the church created the East Africa area to more focus the development of the church in this part of the continent that has just a lot of people and not a lot of members of the church. I don't know if this is why, but if you look at the construction pictures of this temple, they have a Christus statue in front of the temple, which you don't see many. This is probably the first Christus statue that the church owns in Africa. We know that there's one like out in the Paris temple grounds. There's a few and others in Europe, and then in the visitor centers around, but this would be the first one in Africa.
Tell me about the neighborhood and the area around this, because it's a gorgeous temple, but also it looks like, if you can imagine any sort of thing that you would see like on Hulu, where it's like, we got to protect the compound. Like it is electrified wire and spikes and everything around that.
Well, actually, this is one of the nicer parts of town. So interesting. Yeah, that you think that. Yeah, I don't know a lot about it. It used to be a site of a meeting house. They tore down that meeting house to build a temple. So.
And there, hopefully you know this. It seems like this is a thing that you know. In Africa, there are now the 3 areas: Africa East, Africa West, and South.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. I think that's incredible. And the growth, certainly for the next decade or two, of the church will be on the continent of Africa, as we've seen the temples and attention and all of those things. I just think it's incredible.
Certainly, there's probably at least 20 more under construction. So.
So then that takes us to, that's a fun statistic about the temple renderings that have been released.
Yeah, last time we talked, it was the end of December. We got like a tranche of, I think we got 5 renderings. And I'm like, oh, they're just clearing out the renderings for the year. But like the week of Christmas, there was 6 more. And
Jeez.
so that was the church released a total of 37 renderings, which is more than the temples that were announced, 34. So you can see that even though the dedications haven't caught up to the announcements, that maybe the design processes have started to get up to the pace of the announcements. So that's a good sign if you're worried about the backlog of temples.
And we'll get to each of those, but do you find, does the church ever do like Cody, Wyoming is San Diego? Missoula, Montana is Bentonville, Arkansas. Like, is there ever like that is the same temple in a different city?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll talk at the end of these. I can talk about that a little bit because I made a spreadsheet to track this. I
Nice.
found that
Okay.
there's about 10 designs right now that the church is using. So
I love that I lobbed that question up and I'm like, oh, he might know. And you're like, well, actually, at the end, there's a spreadsheet with graphs and statistics and also images, which we'll be able to go to. So I'm excited to talk about that. All right, let's talk renderings then. What's unique about some of these?
okay, we'll put these two together. Cuernavaca, Mexico, and Toluca, Mexico. They were announced at the same time, and the sites were announced at the same time, and now the renderings are being released at the same time. And as you would think, they are, as they would say in Spanish, igualito, very similar. The one in Cuernavaca, they chose more of a mission style, so it's kind of a cream color with kind of that red terracotta roof and more curvy lines you see. While the one in Toluca is more of a white color, more of a stately style, sharp lines. Yeah, so just a little bit, but other than that, yeah, they're pretty equal.
Both just gorgeous. And when you see them, you think Mexico. So, fitting in for the area for what it is, which leads us then to the Des Moines. Oh, no, Cincinnati.
Yeah, Cincinnati Temple. This one is going to be, if you think those are kind of a Spanish colonial, this is more of an English colonial. We see in the steeple, pretty similar to like the Richmond, Virginia temple that was dedicated a couple of years ago. This will be, of course, the largest temple in Ohio because it's much bigger than the Columbus or Cleveland temples. So
And
you kind of had that sandstone color.
is it actually in Ohio? Because like the Cincinnati airport, not in Ohio, it's actually in Kentucky. Confusing, yes, but truthful.
It's in Mason, which is in northern part of Cincinnati.
Okay.
So still in Ohio, but
Okay.
not, yeah, not in Cincinnati itself.
All right. So then Des Moines, another Midwestern.
Yeah. This is yeah, another kind of sandstone color. It looks more like the Toluca and the ones in Mexico, in the kind of this long rectangular shape. But it's more of I think this is correct. It looks more like Romanesque. If you know kind of your architectural styles, I think that's kind of what they were going for. You see some interesting like diamond shapes around the holiness of the Lord. It's a very tall steeple compared to the rest of the building. So
For
we'll
now.
see. We'll see if there's any neighbors that are upset about this. I think there's a statement from the mayor saying they were very excited for this to happen. So we'll
Is,
see what
is there
happens.
is there any rhyme or reason why like they would do it's sort of Spanish colonial for here and that when we're talking about places like Cincinnati or Des Moines, like it would make sense if it's a place in Texas near the border that we would probably see something like that. Is there any rhyme or reason that you are aware of that it'd be like, yeah, this is why we're doing it this way?
I The church has kind of some supervising architects, and I think they try to find some sort of heritage to the
Mm,
area without I don't know, being too grandiose, I guess.
okay.
I'm not really sure of the architectural history of Iowa. Maybe there's some interesting churches that you would find. I didn't find any on my search, but yeah.
Looking ahead, answering my own question about the Missoula, Montana temple, it looks like the Capitol building of the state of Montana a little bit.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's a lot in a lot of these Western states where the Capitol building is the kind of the largest, most notable building. That is pretty common. So good connection.
Yeah.
It kind of has a cupola on the top, kind of a brown color. It's kind of a white granite. Yeah,
You want to know a fun fact that you don't care about, but because I'm trying to impress you this evening, I'm going to tell you.
yes,
You know
I
why
do.
Helena is the capital of Montana?
You've talked about this before,
Oh, shoot. Okay, never
but
mind.
go ahead for the listener.
Ballot stuffing. That's all. And I think it's so awesome. I think it's so awesome. They stuffed the ballots and then they were like, should we found out it, we're not going to move it. Let's keep it in Helena. And this, of course, in Missoula, which is a ways away. A lot of those places in the wintertime, especially, you don't go from one to the other. You hunker down and pray for spring.
That's for sure. Yeah, I think you're right, Richie. Kind of the columns look similar, the color of it, the dome on the top. Yeah, I think
I'm no
that's what
pharaoh,
they
but I know things every once in a while.
did.
Take us now to the Tacoma, Washington temple.
Yeah, the last one we got in 2024. This, if you're familiar, of course, with the famous McKinney, now Texas Temple, which is now going to be redesigned, so it's not going to look like this anymore. But if you recognize that design, it's pretty similar, except that the steeple is more kind of a triangular shaped, with kind of a curvy top.
Mm.
Yeah, kind of that old church feel with the long kind of rectangle shape with the spire and the front.
It seems
Um,
significantly larger, or I'm sorry, smaller than a lot of the renderings. Yeah.
The, um, well, the other ones were only one story. This one
Okay.
is two-story.
Hmm.
So it is about twice as big, about 40,000 square feet.
Maybe the picture with the
Um,
trees just make me think it looks smaller, but it does look. It reminds me, like size wise, and I'm sure you'll tell me exactly how wrong I am, which is why I appreciate you. But like Anchorage, the original Anchorage, it seems super tiny. Like we're gonna tuck it in there.
uh, I think, yeah, you do not know what you're talking about. Sorry.
All right, touche. Brussels, this is cool. There's
Okay.
a lot with this. Jeez.
So this is the first one out for 2025. It is one of the most interesting temples that has been renderings of that has been released in a while, I would say. We got this from the site announcement that it would be built within an existing building. This is in a part in the center of Brussels, really close to the European headquarters, European Union headquarters.
Hmm.
Um, it's just kind of a nondescript office building on the corner. But according to this rendering, it will be transformed quite a bit into a building with a lot of glass, which I think this is more glass than I've ever seen on a temple. So
Yeah.
really leaning into that modern design. If you're more familiar with like the Provo Ogden style 1970s, it kind of looks like it could have been built in the 1970s, as well as what I've seen a lot of people talk about is it actually, if you look at the old pictures of the World Trade Center towers,
Hmm.
if you look on the street level, kind of towards the lobby, you see kind of like these large arches that kind of look like wishbones. And this is kind of what it looks like on the temple. And so it almost looks like the base floor of the World Trade Center, if
What
that makes any sense. And
would there
then,
be any reason to have that connection?
um, no, I guess
Okay.
not. I don't know.
Hmm.
Just that it's a world capital. I don't know. Um, it's kind of more of like a sandstone color. And then there's this kind of slender gold spire that kind of most of it's on the side of the building, but it kind of peeks up a little bit. So not like it's not super noticeable, but you can definitely tell it's maybe a religious building. And then what I like on the top on the roof, there's kind of a rooftop garden. So
Hmm.
this temple is also going to have a meeting house and some accommodation center as well inside. So a lot similar to like the Manhattan Temple.
Yeah, and it's odd looking in that way where it's like, all right, there's the Schlotzky's. We'll go ahead and get a sandwich at that storefront, and then Temple, and then you round the corner, still Temple, and then it's like, all right, I'm gonna go to Potbelly's and get myself a bowl of soup. Like it feels like it's just like right there, almost like a facade on top of the building. By the way, that architectural structure or design is new formalism for those that want to get nerdy about that. Uh,
Okay.
by a Japanese, the guy who did the World Trade Center, a Japanese architect. Architect. Yep.
Nice. Okay.
The
Yeah. So
power of
I,
Google as you talk. Ha ha.
uh, yeah, I think it's a seven-story building, so it's about level with all the other buildings. It doesn't stick out a lot. Um, yeah, we'll see. I know originally in the Belgian uh, news, they said that were denied some permit, but I think they're trying again. So if they're releasing a rendering, I think at least they've probably gotten some hurdle, and
Sure.
now they're ready to make this public.
With a spire, that's weird. Not weird, but cool. Like significant, I guess I should say. Not weird or cool.
Yeah,
It's
this kind of fire in a few places kind of making a comeback. for example, if you're familiar in that downtown Salt Lake City meeting house that they built in a skyscraper,
Uh-huh.
it kind of has a similar modern looking steeple or
It
spire
does?
like that. Uh-huh.
I haven't ever noticed that. And this will be like the Manhattan with there will also be a meeting place. And what is in your notes, and you can see all this, by the way, in the show notes, you mention the arrival facilities. Is that like,
I think
is that a warm cookie and a handshake from someone? Elder, good to see you.
I think it's typically just a place where someone that's traveling a far ways can change, take a shower, maybe. I think
Interesting.
like patron housing is where they can stay, but arrival facilities is more just like freshen up and
Oh,
then.
that's great.
But a lot of people, of course, have been talking about like, does Belgium really need a temple? Like,
Yes.
there's literally 12 congregations in Belgium in two stakes. But that's also closer to for the Lille French stake as well. Instead of going to Paris, they can go here. So maybe three stakes total. Um, so I'm sure people will use it. Maybe it won't be as busy as, all the temples in
Sure.
the
And
world.
why do we need to gatekeep temples for people, everyone? Be great, be grateful. I don't know.
Yeah. But I mean, there's plenty of other places further away that are also getting temples. So I think, yeah, just right now they're focused on everywhere needs a temple, I guess.
The rooftop garden comment also makes me hearken to the San Diego temple and the inside what is that area
Oh,
called? The courtyard that had kind of all the
atrium.
flowers. The atrium, that's the word.
Yeah.
Uh
That has like a ceiling above it.
yeah, that's
This one's
gone
more of
with
like
the renovation, yeah.
I
Gotta
don't
be.
know.
Gotta
I wouldn't
be.
think so. I
Gotta
haven't heard
be.
anything about
This
it.
wasn't the issue like mold and water and all the things, and so they'll be like,
I
I know everyone liked it. Out.
actually, I have no idea with San Diego if that's the problem. If
Is there anything else like that in any other temples? We have it painted in
like
Manti.
a
Is there
rooftop
anywhere
garden.
else?
Oh, like an atrium.
Yeah, or
Was
anything
there
like that.
is there like live plants in the atrium before?
Yes.
Okay.
It was like um Eden. I think it was the I'm not joking. It
Oh
was
yeah,
beautiful flowers and very, 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 very like cultured, not cultured, manicured.
okay, I believe you. Yeah, we'll see
Yeah. I
how.
hope we do. I hope they keep it.
But yeah, I'll talk for a second about the spreadsheet that I have. So basically, with these temple renderings, you can kind of tell with the shape of the building, whether it's kind of a long rectangle, whether it's a square, whether it's a two-story rectangle, and then the square footage that they give, you can kind of draw a correlation between, which ones are about the same size and floor
Mm.
plan, even though they're basically everything has a unique exterior, with a few exceptions. A few of them are kind of clones, but most of them have a pretty unique exterior, and then they use this similar floor plan. So I've tracked that there's about 10 floor plans that the church is using right now, which is different than when we had that boom under President Hinckley.
Hmm.
There was basically only one temple design, and that was used in 44 locations, and
Jeez.
there was no like localization to the exterior. It was all none of this like Spanish colonial or English colonial. It was just all the same one, whether it was in Mexico or Hawaii or Africa. But the church is trying a lot harder to, yeah, make those temples blend in a little bit more to local culture. So the first one I have is Mini, which is these small, started with the Helena Temple,
Hmm.
about 10,000 square feet. It's a square,
Are these all
plus
prefabs or no?
some of them are modular, some of them are
Okay.
not.
Okay.
And there's so far 29 designs right now for those.
Jeez.
Um, there's another one which you saw in Okinawa, which is kind of similar, but it's a two-story one, but kind of a similar um, size. The next one that we've been seeing the most often is these ones we saw those two in Mexico, and then the one in Iowa and Missoula. They're about 20,000 square feet. They're a long rectangle.
Hmm.
The next one is kind of a two-story long rectangle where we see this tower, the spire in the front. And then the one that is so far been used the most is kind of this kind of large square design, which is 30,000 square feet. So far, there's 38 temples that have been using this
Jeez.
design. This is
Jeez.
the Cincinnati one that we talked about right now.
Hmm.
And then we're seeing these more two-story square ones, which are also about 30,000 square feet, similar to the one that's being built in Montpelier, Idaho right now, and the one we saw unveiled in Mexico City, Benny Merito, a few weeks ago. Um, and then the next one is this McKinney, Burgley, Tacoma, Richmond, Virginia, Auckland, New Zealand style. It's a little bit larger, two-story rectangle, about 45,000 square feet. The next one I call large.
Mm-hmm.
It's the Orem, Taylorsville, Desert Peak, Pocatello, and the one they're going to do for Lone Mountain.
Those are the
They're about
Jello Belt. It's the Jello Belt temples.
they're about 40,000 square feet. They have four ceiling rooms, four endowment rooms. And then the newer kind of Utah ones that we're seeing, the Linden, the Smithfield, Layton, although it's a little bit different. It's kind of a three-story rectangle, a long rectangle, about 85,000 square feet. This one is going to be in Lehigh and West Jordan as well. And then the last one is the extra large temples, which is the Saratoga Springs, Red Cliffs, and then the Teton River one that's being built in Idaho right now.
That's Teton River is not the second Rexburg one, right? That's a different one.
No, wait, that's the one.
That
It
is the one.
Rexburg
That is the okay. Okay. Well, it's got to. It's Rick's. We need a big old temple.
That's right.
You know what? Because you fascinate me and because we have great banter that people love because it's so witty, we're going to take a break. When we come back in the second half, we will do more temple news from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, including vertical coring. Guys, vertical coring. It's vertical. What the? Okay, we'll come back and do that in the second half of the Temple Ticker.
Here we go.
BestDJinUtah.com is the website. That is where you go if you would like me to come and DJ your event. Now, will I do a family reunion where you all wear the same t-shirts? You bet I will. Will I travel to wherever you're at? Am I reasonable as far as what I cost? Yes. Do I bring a good time? Yeah, all the things. Listen, Best DJ in Utah, it's my company. It's a thing I do that allows me to be able to have the time to do the cultural hall. So if someone's getting married, you think, man, they need a great DJ. You're throwing a party, whether it's a 50th or 60th or 40th or 20th or whatever the party is. I've done them all and would love to be able to do that. An anniversary party, certainly done those. I did a baptism in 2023. Yeah, we did a big dance party at a baptism. Spoiler, not a Mormon baptism, but it was fun nonetheless. BestDJinUtah.com is a website. I will get back to you within 24 hours with a quote. Come on now. BestDJinUtah.com. Here in the second half of the Temple Ticker, we continue on with those news and other articles that have been gathered lovingly by the careful, gentle, kind hands of Corey K. Ward, the Pharaoh himself. All the notes, all the links in the show notes. It's invaluable, seriously. Takes tons of time. I would say near hours, tens of hours, perhaps. It's a hobby. I don't pay him, but I love the work that comes from it and the things that we're all able to learn at his hand. So let's talk about vertical coring. Man, the article would make me think that that we were opening it back up and that, we might see guests in spirit form by how they were like vertical coring. And then I read about it and it's like, okay, they made holes.
Yeah, they released like a long, 7-minute video about this, which apparently, so now the vertical coring has been complete. So we know that the renovation of the Slag Temple is to install a base isolation foundation. So in the theoretically earthquake that's coming to Utah, if it's more than like a 7.0, that basically will just kind of detach from the floor and then kind of wiggle around, but we're going to keep the temple just all in one kind of package. And in order to do that, they had to connect the walls of the temple to that foundation. And so from the 6 towers that they drilled 46 holes. They're about maybe, I think it was 6 inches in diameter. And there are these big cables that then attach to the foundation, come up to the tower so that all the towers don't wiggle around when the foundation moves. It was really interesting. They said that a lot of the drill bits are made out of diamonds, industrial diamonds. And then in order to make all the adjustments that they needed to these drill bits, they just installed a machine shop in a trailer and then put it on the roof of the temple. So if you see those structures that are above there, there's also some porta potties up there, which a lot of people
which is so weird. So weird. Is that it's a yep. Because also those things aren't getting cleaned out very often. So they're like, listen, this is here for an emergency only. We're not getting that stinky van up to the top to clean these suckers out very often. That's how my brain works.
That's right. So yeah, if you're really interested in that kind of technical detail, go ahead and watch that video. And then they also released a picture of what the interior of the temple, which this is kind of the underground north annex that they're building right now. They're
Mhm.
gonna have like 22 ceiling rooms in that. So they've got a picture of the door entrance to one of these future ceiling rooms. So if you're interested in that as well, you can check that out.
14 statues being installed on Temple Square. You won't believe what number 14 is. That's how I sort of felt that article was too. And then there isn't. We only know number one and number two.
Yeah, Desert News likes those hooks.
Yep.
Um, yeah, so apparently, yeah, there's I guess a master plan right now, and there's going to be 14 new statues on Temple Square. I've seen one of them already. It was the first Vision one.
Mhm.
And then they recently installed one called Come Follow Me, which is a kind of like Jesus calling the fishermen over. Yeah. So,
It's a cool
and then it was
concept,
like
beautiful structures, all these things.
12 more to go. So I guess this will be a reoccurring story.
I hope, and I wish I could remember more details about this, but I don't know, maybe you'll know what I'm talking about. Um, but up in Bountiful at the Wood family property, do you know about that place up in Bountiful?
No, I don't.
So there is this family. I think they're the Woods. Now, listen to me. Here we go. This is the kind of thing people love for about me. There's this place in Bountiful, and they have like all these like odd artifacts because of who this guy was. He was a homesteader, got the land, super rich, and has um like clothes from when Joseph Smith was martyred or something like that, right? And they have like the original altar from the Salt Lake Temple, and they have and where I was going with this, they have a statue on their property there that for some reason, and I wish I could remember, I'll find out and get back to everyone about this for the next time we do. But
Okay.
there was something that was like doctrinally correct, but the church didn't want to have be in the statue. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't.
Okay. Yeah. So anyway, they've got it. So they have this massive statue constructed and built and all this thing. And then they were like, yeah, we're not doing that. We're going to do this in a different way. Oh, I think it's maybe that. Yeah, I think that is it. And I promise everyone, I'm sorry. I'm so terrible. I'm the worst. Corey knows what he's talking. I just know all the hearsay stuff. I want to say that in the statue, that Satan is depicted in the statue, and they were like, no, absolutely not. We will not have Satan be a part of a statue on Temple Square. And so they said, and then they ended up doing something else. I'll find out what that is.
Okay.
Maybe while you're telling us about that. But that's cool. Two statues. That's where that came from. Sorry, everyone.
Yeah,
Uh,
keep that for the restoration movie. That's fun. You
okay,
can
all
have
right.
Satan in there.
Take us to where we need to go next. I'm going to try and find that out before this episode gets over, actually.
Okay. The Provo Temple has been demolished and now it's being rebuilt as the Provo, Utah Rock Canyon Temple. And the church has not said a lot about the design other than released the rendering. But from the pictures of the foundation that they're doing, it looks pretty sure that there's going to be two baptismal fonts in this temple. So this
Okay.
is a trend that we've been seeing where so far the temple in Linden, the one in Syracuse, the one in Smithfield, and then Salt Lake. So this might be like the fifth temple to have two baptismal fonts. But you can kind of see from this foundation that there's two kind of big holes where the font will empty out from in the basement.
Hmm.
So you heard it here first. The new Provo Temple will have two baptismal fonts.
So mark that down here first. There's not many that have the two, right?
No, I probably list all five of them,
Yeah.
and they're not finished yet.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Okay. So then
another temple
we
that was recently demolished, the Stockholm, Sweden temple, is being rebuilt. And part of this rebuilding is to make the land flatter. Before, I guess it was somewhat hard for people, maybe with disabilities, to kind of roll up the hill or walk up the hill. So they're kind of doing a site leveling right now to make it more even. And then they're going to build a new temple, which will, instead of one story, it's going to be two stories now. Although it will look pretty similar to the original temple.
the pictures from October of the San Diego temple and like all the the just dirt. I'm wondering, are we thinking that they're going to be doing xeriscaping responsible for California, or do we just think it's like, nah, it's not grown yet?
Yeah, I haven't seen a lot of pictures from this temple renovation lately, but one just from November kind of shows that they just yeah cleared out all the vegetation that were on the side of the temple. Probably replanting, but who knows? Um, so this temple closed 18 months ago for supposedly an 18-month renovation. So
Mm.
apparently they're not still not finished. But I'm hoping any day that there'll be an announcement. Any of these Mondays they'll make an announcement. There'll be open house sometime in the summer, maybe fall.
And will be rededicated?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. That'd be a fun one to go out to. Modesto.
They also have it in California. The Modesto, California temple topped out, so they kind of installed like the tallest tower, the beams in the tallest tower. Um, which I'm only mentioning is because it was covered in the Modesto Bee.
Mm.
So it looks like some curiosity from the media about this temple. And which is also interesting because this temple, yeah, is about the same size as the one that's proposed in Bakersfield and the one that will now be built maybe in Fairview, Texas. So
But no opposition to Modesto.
yeah, there wasn't really anything. It was built on already church property, kind of in a baseball field by a stake center. I don't know if that has to do with anything.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it does fulfill the whole "if you build it, they will come." A little
There you go.
on the nose, but we'll take it. Wichita. This is a Lego temple.
Yep, and they're continuing, maybe finishing up the uh, installation of these modules. So in that snowy Kansas weather right now,
Oof.
they're doing that.
Really up to date pictures within the last couple of days. All of these, by the way, again, all of these lovingly prepared, and find the pictures and links and show notes from the Pharaoh himself. So that takes us to Vanuatu.
Yeah, you talked about this a little bit with Verland about how there was an earthquake there. But it looks like recovery is doing well because they've already continued with the construction on the temple.
Mm.
This is also a Lego temple with all the modules, and they recently finished installing those and putting in some of the windows, and they're building a new meeting house because they demolished it to build the temple. So
Okay, that's what the other building was. I was like, I mean, that's not modular, and that doesn't look like a temple. So the people will get a new ward house or steakhouse and a temple, and what looks to be about the same time.
yep, that's right.
That's
And
cool.
speaking about natural disasters around temples, I've seen a lot on social media about the Los Angeles temple, how you can see in the hills behind the temple the fire burning,
Mhm.
which for someone that's not familiar with the area, it looks like, oh my gosh, the temple's in danger. But if you look at the map, the fire would have to rip through UCLA campus before it got to the temple.
Yeah,
So the temple is safe. There's other things to be worried about right now.
yeah,
Don't be disaster mongering, I guess, on the internet.
yeah.
Help where you can, or put the attention where it needs to be.
Well, and Just Serve. There's a lot of service opportunities in your area with Just Serve to help the people in California. Red Cross, and you can also make monetary donations via your tithing slip and mark it for fire relief, and they'll do with it as they will. Again, you're making that donation. You don't get to pick, but you can say, "I'd really like it to go to that cause for sure." Queen Creek.
Yeah, we got this story from the Queen Creek Tribune, but then apparently it's been taken down. And I think I know why it was taken down because they said they had a scoop about where the temple would be built that was announced last conference in Queen Creek, Arizona. Um, but they reported that the church had ownership of a 4-acre site right on Riggs Road, which is across from the new Fat Cats, which is a very Utah thing.
Yes.
Um, so what I think why it was taken down is because they're told this is not the temple site. It's only 4 acres. Um, some small temples maybe will be built on this acreage, but in Arizona, this is going to be kind of a medium large, maybe even a large temple. They're going to need at least 15, maybe even 20 acres, especially because of those Arizona parking requirements.
Sure.
And I think this is probably better the site of a meeting house because I looked in the area, all the meeting houses in the area had 4 wards each.
Mm.
And this is a high growth area, so I assume that, and this is about the size of where you expect a meeting house to go.
Okay. So
I think
what
just
I'm learning is that the Queen Creek Tribune should have consulted your spreadsheet and realized that it's a medium, large, or large, and there's no way. Stupid
yeah, I mean, yeah,
Tribune.
they're correlating an announcement with a site, and I think that yeah, the church has other ideas.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we don't know then where that's going to be, but that's sad. A good slice of pizza post temple, go right across the street, little
But
bowling,
there's also a nice
laser
like
tag.
garden area in the back that had like mini golf and everything. So I guess the people at Meeting House will enjoy that better.
Bakersfield.
Yeah, we talked about how this is the same size as the one in Modesto, that's being bought right now. It just got leveled out. They're going to do environmental review, um, but there's a neighborhood group that's disappointed that they didn't do any redesign. They didn't lower the height of the steeple.
Hmm.
They're looking at, hey, look over there at Fairview. You lowered the steeple for them, so why not for us?
Right.
The thing is that the height that they lowered to is the exact height that Bakersfield is planned for.
Hmm.
Although they also pointed out Yorba Linda, which the church lowered the steeple, something that was lower than originally they proposed, which is the same design as Bakersfield. So we'll have to see if they get their way or not. But seeing that it's going through environmental review, I think the church is going to try and get their way on this.
Which then takes us to the Cody, Wyoming, which, man, there's part of this that seems crazy to me.
Yeah, we talked about how like a year or two before the groundbreaking, um, they brought the modules to Cody when they didn't have the approvals yet, and when that stuff was brewing about all the controversy, and they just stored them on some site. But now they've been installed, and the local newspaper is saying that hey, the contractor is very responsive. I guess these guys in Cody, I guess, just have nothing to write about because they're talking about how yeah, the contractor is really great.
Yeah,
Hearing our
no offense. Have
concerns
you
and
been to Cody,
everything.
Wyoming? It is the everything they have to talk about.
So yeah, this temple's just in the news every month or so now, especially now that it's being built. But what's interesting that they dug up is that the someone from the city said that the permit shows that the estimated valuation of the temple and the site and all the buildings on it, the parking lot, is going to be $41 million, which is a lot. Is pretty surprising to me because
Yeah,
this is
that
the
seems
smallest.
like so much.
We talked about how this is the smallest design that the church does, only 10,000 square feet. The temple in Pocatello was estimated at $80 million, so a temple only a seventh as large is costing half as much. Maybe it's because they had to do all this litigation. Maybe it's because they had to do all the site work because it's kind of in a rural area. Who
Could be all
knows?
the infrastructure. That would make sense to me, I guess, but that is a high ticket number for just one that is as small as it is. Geez.
Speaking of that, the temple in Auckland is going to be dedicated also this year. It's going to open in probably a month or so for open house. In New Zealand, they reported that the valuation of the temple was 36.9 million. So it's
Mhm.
interesting that also a temple four times as large in New Zealand cost the same as the one in Cody.
Well, but
Um,
I have to take issue with you real quick because what you should have led with is the headline for the Auckland, New Zealand temple in the what is this? In the what print the stuff in the stuff from New Zealand. I love this. Go ahead.
yeah, the stuff reports, what is the massive fortress like? The structure in South Auckland. So yeah, a lot of people are obviously noticing it driving down the highway. It's very large, pointing out. It's right in between a meeting house and the MTC.
Hmm.
So they just had this land for a long time. Maybe the valuation is a little bit lower because it's on a site where the church already owned. I don't know. But yeah, they're just like, hey, what is this? And like, it's one of those basic stories about, yeah, you have to be in good standing, and they're gonna do baptisms for the dead and instruction and stuff like that. And they're gonna have an open house. And then some guy from America, which he's actually from the UK, is gonna come and dedicate it. So,
Now, the article incorrectly says that there's going to be an Angel Moroni, which I think is interesting. There will
wait, who
not
says
be
that?
any. Yeah. So as I'm reading down, it says, wait for it.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, it says there will be an Angel Moroni on the top of it. It's like, nope, I don't think
Yeah,
so.
look
I
at
would
the
be
pictures you
very,
took for the story.
Yeah.
They noticed that when you're over in South Auckland, it's also kind of next to like an amusement park.
Mhm.
So while you're going on those roller coasters, you have a really good view of the temple.
Yeah.
But
What it looked
obviously, not a view that's good enough to notice that there's no Moroni. So I don't
Yeah.
know.
What is this massive structure? The other thing about it that I think is curious is it doesn't it seem like it's a sort of a government building and like one of these places where like the red light zaps you in the eyes and then you go in. Like it feels like a little like Men in Blacky, like come on into the government like it has that sort of like ominous, large, foundational, come on in kind of thing. It
Well, I think
is like a fortress, like a bank, like a vault, like a any number of things.
it's a very boxy design.
Yeah.
So yeah, it kind of looks like a large box government
Not
building.
going with me on the Men in Black. That's what I heard. So you have bonus parts for us. In 2024, tell me about the growth or not so growth of the church.
Yeah. So there was net growth in the number of stakes that occurred in 2024. And this is important for a temple just because this is what the, kind of when I look for new temple sites predictions, I look at stakes and the number of stakes and if there's any new stakes to do these predictions. So there was 59 stakes that were created,
Mhm.
and then there was 15 stakes that were discontinued.
Hmm.
And of the stakes that were discontinued, 11 were in Utah. Now, from the stakes that were created, there were 17. So there was still a net growth of six stakes in Utah, and a number of those stakes were for the first time. There was two Spanish stakes organized. There was a
Okay.
couple of Tongan stakes that also um, split. And so this wasn't necessarily, in the case of the Spanish stake, it wasn't necessarily because there was growth. It was because they took all the Spanish words from different English stakes and made one stake.
Hmm.
But it is very interesting to look at the locations of the 17 that were created and then the 11 that were discontinued, because you have, as you probably know, the high growth areas in the Wasatch Front, Harriman, Mapleton, Eagle Mountain, Saratoga Springs, Lehigh,
Mhm.
were all the ones that were created, while the ones that were discontinued, they include, at the end of the year, there was three stakes that were discontinued in Kearns, Utah. They took five of the stakes and they created them into two. Also, the Cottonwood, that Cottonwood Heights, there was um, one in Salt Lake City, one in Ogden, West Jordan. There were some YSA. It was interesting. There was YSA stakes in Cache County that were discontinued, but then there was a YSA stake created in Provo. So you kind of maybe see the kind of where young adults are choosing to live, less in Salt Lake County, less in the northern parts of the state, and they're moving to Utah County. So it's interesting to see these demographic shifts in Utah.
The majority of the ones not in the United States, are they Africa that were
I
created?
wouldn't say the majority, but like I mean a good amount. You had yeah, Ghana, Nigeria, but other ones like you have Indiana, you have Idaho was big this year for new states as well. That's also where a lot of people are moving to.
Sure.
Mozambique, Texas had a few. Um, yeah,
Okay.
there's
All
even
right.
one in Bakersfield, California.
Yeah, but
So
they
not
don't like
not
us there.
that's right.
The Cody, Wyoming of California, Bakersfield. And no offense, Bakersfield, but I've been there. It would be a treat to have something in your town that would be worth sitting at and seeing. The McDonald's just isn't doing it. The train monument that's there. Let's come on. Let's open it up to something else. Is it Baker or Bakersfield that has the large thermometer? Do you know off the top of your head?
I don't.
Yeah,
Never heard of that.
there's this ridiculous thermometer in one of the Baker or Bakersfield, California, and we always joke it's like that's the thing.
It's not
And
in Death Valley, is it? Because that's
no,
where it gets hot. Oh,
uh,
the world's tallest thermometer in Baker, California. Where is
hot
Baker?
dog, man, who
It's
knows
not.
dumb
It's
stuff?
not. It's yeah. Not Bakersfield, but Baker, like you
Yep,
said. Is that in the? Where is that part?
I want to say it's
Um.
right outside of Bakersfield.
It's. I mean, like 3 hour drive maybe from
Yeah, see,
Bakersfield. It's
yeah,
like on your way to Las Vegas almost.
yeah, see, it's and
But
it
yeah,
is
close
technically
close to
kind of
Death
in Death
Valley
Valley.
where
Yeah,
it gets super hot. Yeah.
yep. Well, that's it. We've done it. We've been able to take an entire hour talking about not very much temple news, which is fine. We got nerdy. We talked about not just temple stuff. If you have things, and I know that there are people that do this, and I'm going to lean into this also in our articles of news and also in our interview episodes. But I want to open this up and have the show be everybody's show. So please, if you know about something, if you're in Indiana, if you're in Philadelphia, if you happen to be whatever, and you know about some of these things, the little scuttlebutt, you want to say, hey, I didn't say anything, or you can not have it be anonymous and just be like, I've heard that this, we're here for it. Send it along. Contact at theculturalhall.com. I will pass it along to Corey, and he will Google Earth it to see if there's anything to it so that it's not just a story like what I talked about, which had no foundation in reality or truthfulness, apparently, about that statue. I'm going to find it. But he will suss it out and then be able to share it with us in another Temple Ticker episode. Corey, I hope that this episode has nourished and strengthened your body.
Hope that we weren't able to listen this week, but you'll be able to listen next week.
And then when the time comes, you'll be able to travel home in safety. In the meantime, Chris at Alpine Lakes Travel, Debbie Wanless, Chocolate Cake Bites Podcast, and the Tiger with a U, we'll be saving a seat for you.
On the back row
of the Cultural
Hall.
Save me a seat, it's sure to be neat on the back row. We really gotta go on the Cultural Hall show.